So I've chosen to fight for something that I think is bigger than the Gracie family, bigger than MMA. I'm trying to fight for the truth for the next generation, so my nephew and the next generation has something to live there. I think that we all just need to understand that the more we spark the truth, it takes time, to get to somewhere where the things that I know, it takes time.
We just assumed that we'd get the same treatment as everybody else, which is a foolish assumption.
Yeah.
We've clearly touched a nerve. We're clearly questioning something that some very powerful people are uncomfortable having questions.
Well, that's absolutely the case.
But hey, listen.
And where those people are, we will get into.
Look, here's the bottom line. I believe that it's a sign of good documentary filmmaking when the status quo is up in arms at the mere fact of having asked some questions. And let's stop being so terrified of the possibility that the Earth might be in a special place in the cosmos. At the end of the day, 400 years ago, Giordano Bruno was burned on the streets of Rome for daring to question the place of Earth in the cosmos.
Jack, what are you talking about?
The Earth is flat.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's
yes,
not.
Yes, it is.
No,
listen,
it's not.
There's 3 ways to manipulate the mind. What you read, what you see, and what you hear.
He wants to hear what he already believes. He doesn't want to hear the truth. He doesn't want to accept the truth, not what the actual truth is. Now, people like that don't belong in the truth movement. Therefore, the division is okay by me. Flat Earth has given me good reason to pay attention to people. It's simple, really. If they are flat earthers, then they have the ability to overcome cognitive dissonance. Therefore, they are sincere in their pursuit of truth. Not all flat earthers, though, because some are obvious shills. But also, you don't have to be a flat earther for me to take you seriously. It's just that flat earthers and ball earth skeptics that admit they don't know have more credibility because flat earth is the truth. But I can't be mad at anybody who hasn't taken the time to look at flat earth. It's when you have looked at it and you conclude that it's bullshit is when I have a problem with someone or I stop paying attention to someone. There's no use in me wasting my time on someone that can't even admit the truth to themselves. That's how I see it. Flat Earth has been everything but proven 100%. But what do you expect? There's a 500-year and running conspiracy to hide the truth from us. It's not like it's supposed to be extremely easy to figure out. That's the whole point with truth seeking. People have covered up the truth, and we are trying to uncover it. It's not supposed to be a piece of cake. So leave your ego behind if you're really about the truth. Because this is bigger than all of us. It's not about me. It's not about Eric Dubé. It's not about Jeranism. It's not about who found it first or whatnot. It's about the truth and getting it across to people in the most successful way possible. And that's it. All I want is to see people wake up and take their power back. At least take their minds back. That's where the power is. That's what they have done to us. They've taken our minds. The flat earth truth does away with all of the mind control. It does away with the bogus theory of evolution. It does away with the dinosaur deception. It does away with the lie that there are aliens out there. And though we still end up with more questions than answers, our minds are freed. And that's how real change is going to happen in this world of ours.
I want to tell you something now. Over $600 billion in military budget for the year 2015. Over $600 billion in military budget in 2015. Before I tell you what they're using that $600 billion for, I'm going to tell you this. 1 billion would have fed every starving individual across the face of this earth. Now, this is what they're doing with it. They're destroying history. They're using that money to destroy history. They're rewriting the school books. They're fabricating history. They're going to teach the next generation who's living what they want them to believe, which is nothing. That's why the Bible is so watered down now. Each generation, it's watered down more and more. Each generation, the truth is watered down more and more. Each generation, history is deleted and fabricated something new more and more. And y'all, it's out of hand now. It's out of control. They're laughing their butts off at all of us, folks. The only ones of you who got cop friends, you're a bunch of Nazi sympathizers, or you're bedfellows. What they're going to do to you when they destroy this country right here, they're going to throw you to animals for sport. Or they'll burn you. Or many will walk right in, just walk right in and do anything that they want to, folks. They're power tripping. And you know something, I believe a lot of the police and the police departments are on LSD too. I really do. They're giving them mind-altering drugs to turn them into monsters. Drug-crazed human beasts in uniforms, wearing badges and carrying guns, wearing body armor. I'm not BSing, I ain't making this stuff up. The only reason I'm doing a video, today's a Sabbath day. I think you ought to honor the Sabbath. Remember the Sabbath, to keep it holy. That's one of the commandments. Man turned it from a Saturday into a Sunday for his convenience, to make money. There ain't enough people trying to talk to him. Y'all think you're praying and talking to him? I got news for you. If you can't see the flat earth, he ain't hearing much that you gotta say, I don't think. The flat earth is a spiritual awakening to all truth. Like I said in the last video, Jesus Christ is truth. He's the Word. I'm telling you right now, folks, you better start taking it real serious. This call, there's a calling out there to the marriage supper of the Lamb, and that is the marriage supper to truth. You've got to marry to truth. You got to get off of this globe. And these people that are putting the flat earthers down and having their little fun shots doing it, getting a lot of hits and all that stuff, they're going to bring a hardship on themselves before it's over with, folks.
Everything that NASA has put out is CGI, is fake. Okay, you know, people say, I think you mentioned it. You know, if you look out into the universe, you see that the moon is round, you know, spherical, and the planets are spherical, and so why are we flat? Well, how do you know that the planets and the stars are spherical? You know, all you get is, if you look for a telescope, you see a flat disc. If you think you see a spherical shape there, well, it needs two eyes to resolve 3D. If you're looking for a telescope, you can't see anything in 3D. It's going to be flat anyway. So all you see is a flat blob of light. It's only NASA that's giving you these beautiful pictures of so-called planets and stars. Yeah. So it's a fallacy to say, well, everything else out there is spherical, so we must be. You know, how this is special. You know, so why? It's like saying a basketball is round, so why isn't the court round? You know, it's a fallacy. It exploded. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of people looking at flat Earth now. And what happens is that you'll watch something or read something, and something will strike a chord in your mind, and you'll think, yeah, I've always wondered that. And what will happen is you will start feverishly researching. I mean, what happened to me was, as soon as I got that, I spent every waking hour looking for things and testing things, and this seems to be replicated with thousands of people around the world who suddenly come into this. They start, you know, researching and getting a passion for this, because this is what I think, it's the truth, and we recognize the truth when we hear it, and we feel it, and this I believe has come at the exact right time, so that we awaken. Age of 13, you know, I didn't want anything to do with God and Bibles and whatever and religions, and now I know for a fact there is a creator. I've seen his fingerprint you know, not just with the flat earth. Everything I've done in the last 5 or 10 years has led me to see that there is a creator now. And there's a great many people out there who have had exactly the same revelation as I have. And it is. I'm now following the commandments and trying to be the best human being that I can be, because I think it was a guy called Kent Hovind who said there are only two possibilities. Either there is a God or there isn't. And both of them are terrifying.
Yeah.
If there isn't a God, then nobody's in control. We're hurtling through space and there's no plan and there's no nothing, and you know, that's terrifying. If there is a God, then we'd better find out who he is and what he wants and do exactly what he says. And it turns out that he gave us very specific instructions on how to live. And they're not rules as in, you know, laws that you must follow because you know, or put you in prison if you don't. No, these are rules to live by, to make a harmonious world. You know, don't harm anyone, don't kill anybody, don't steal from people, you know, don't covet people's items, you know.
Don't lie.
Don't lie. I mean, these things are written in our hearts anyway, but you're not meant to know what's really going on, because that's the power they have over us. They know what's going on, how this world works. We don't, so they can control us. One of the things about slavery is the slaves weren't freed. They were never freed. When the 14th Amendment or 13th Amendment, I can't remember which one, actually made everybody a slave. If you're a citizen of a country, you're a slave. That's what a citizen is. So they literally extended the slavery to everybody and made it an open prison, and that's where everybody in the world lives now. We're slaves to very powerful masters. We don't see bars.
No.
Yeah? The bars are the borders of the country. Right? You have to use a pass to get out, and they'll let you out if you show them your pass.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world, built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
People so caught up in this race stuff, and they worry about black and white, that they forgetting that white people in slavery too. All of us Americans are in slavery. If you have a lease, or you have to pay your rent, or you have to pay your loan, if you got to pay anybody else, you are in slavery. If you do your work and you go to work and you come from work and you have to pay somebody else, you're in slavery. Like, you are enslaved to your credit, your rent, your bills, your DP&L, your water. You in slavery to all that stuff. Are you able to get rid of it, or do you have to pay it? Once you get older and you become an adult, once you're not a kid anymore, you are a slave unless you are rich. Now there's ways that you can play and you can be on the better side, but for most of the Americans who work a regular 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, whatever hours you work, if you have to go to work for 40 hours a week and you doing something that you really truly do not want to do, and you have to pay somebody to live your life, to live a basic, decent lifestyle that any American, any person in this world is entitled to, then you are a slave. And you see the white people go to work, black people go to work, Mexicans go to work, Chinese people go to work on a daily basis. The daily basis, you have to go to work for another person. So you are in slavery. So don't be worried about who hates you. Worry about doing you. Worry about doing your own business, taking care of what you got to take care of. Just because somebody else out there and they getting harassed and stuff like that, yeah, you fight against it. You fight against it. But don't think that it's just us. It's not just the black people. It's the world. The world is going through this shit.
Hi everybody, and thank you for viewing this video. My name is Isabel, and today what I'd like to go through is the idea and concept of freedom. Now, a few days ago I was driving against the traffic and I was looking at the opposite side of the road and looking at all those cars heading towards the city to go to work at something like 7:30 in the morning. Anyway, so as I was driving along, I noticed how they were going really slowly, and it seemed like they were almost chained together, these people. You know, they were all heading in the same direction really slowly and really automatically, like robots. It kind of resembled to me a sense of slavery. If you contrast that to ancient slavery, and if you look at, you know, how the slaves were tied together with rope or with chains and were whipped by Romans and things like that, you kind of realize that our modern day society isn't too far off from that. Although we don't get the direct abuse, obviously we don't get the whipping and things like that, we do, in a sense, we kind of think that we do have freedom in the sense that we can, you know, switch on our iPod or, you know, put on the music in our radio or listen to the breakfast show or something like that. In that aspect, we believe that we actually have a sense of freedom, and that we're in like modern day vehicles and things like that. We're kind of in the same way chained together and heading towards the same direction, you know, because we have work to do. Now, if we decide not to take that path, then we won't have money. And if we don't have money, we won't be able to survive in this society. We won't be able to buy food. We won't be able to do this and that. We won't have the luxury of life. So it's not really an option to quit work and just sit there and, you know, get payment from the government or something, because that's not very, it's not a very efficient way of living. Now my point is that if you kind of take a distance from this, if you kind of step backwards and you have a look at why we work in the first place, very few people can come up with very good reasons why we actually work. I mean, what is this human obsession with keeping busy all the time, or with kind of like doing something? What is this human obsession with not being able to just live a life in sort of nature, you know, not having to build all of this stuff? Because if we didn't have to build all of these hotels, all of these roads, all of these cars, all of these things, then we wouldn't have to work in the first place. And why is it that we need to do that kind of stuff? Why is it that we actually need, you know, to keep on getting better and better, you know, keep on improving technology, keep on doing this and that? What's the point? I mean, what is the point? You're only here for about 100 years, if you're lucky. You're only here for a limited time period. And unfortunately, the moment you're born into this society, you're sort of brainwashed in order to, you know, you need to take the following steps. You need to, you know, first you get born, then you go to kindergarten, then you go to school, you spend 12 years at school, then you go to hopefully university, then you go to work. By then you're brainwashed. By then you're integrated into the society, you're doing exactly what the society expects you to do, to live as a citizen of this society and to be a slave to the workforce, to devote your entire life to devote your entire time, your time away from your family, so that you can be out there to help people construct bigger and bigger buildings, bigger and bigger bridges, and better technology. But why? What for? I mean, what is there to really achieve? There's nothing to really achieve out there. It's actually, work in a sense is diminishing our living conditions. It's diminishing people's ability to spend time with their families, which is what is more important. It's diminishing the quality of relationships. If you look at the divorce rate, most of that is because there's money issues, or there's problems with, you know, couples not spending enough time together, etc. It's not directly due to the fact that human beings are bad. It's due to the fact that this society expects us to sacrifice our entire lives from age 0, maybe age 3, up to age 65 to do stuff for the society. I mean, if you think about it, whoever really wants to do that? Isn't there more to this life than just to work and just to travel in the morning to, you know, to and fro with the traffic? I mean, there has to be something more. There has to be greater meaning, because person gets up to 65 and then they realize, what was that for? Like, after 65 years, they realize that was a waste of time. And now I have my freedom, but now I don't know what to do with it, because I need to be busy in order to, you know, have a normal functioning mind. You know, they lose a sense of self, because they're so consumed with, you know, traveling to work or working for a particular company. They get so obsessed about, you know, following the exact criteria that, you know, people around them are following. You know, to first, you know, go to school, then go to work. It's kind of like sheep, you know, blind sheep. One sheep's going that way, the other one's following because they don't know what they're doing. So they're just using that as a model. But you really need to question whether all of this is actually worth it, whether it's actually worth your entire life to sacrifice to a particular company or to particular work, to a particular work type.
All the national radio and TV channels in the nation are owned and controlled by those same internationalist bankers. The same is true of every chain of metropolitan newspapers and magazines. Also of the press wire services, such as Associated Press, United Press International, etc. The supposed heads of all those media are merely the fronts for the internationalist bankers, who in turn compose the hierarchy of the CFR, today's Illuminati in America.
Conspiracy theory is a term that's used whenever anybody ascribes conscious intent to people with power. So I can say to you that school teachers are concerned about their salaries, and they're organizing, and they're threatening a strike, and they're pressuring. I can say to you that farmers are doing this and looking for subsidies and facing certain policies. But the minute I say to you that the very people at the top, the plutocracy, the very rich and powerful, the ones who own most of America, that they are consciously pursuing power and wealth, someone will come along and say, what do you have, a conspiracy theory? Or they'll say, oh, you're cynical or you're paranoid. Their view is that stuff just happens. Things just happen, unintended consequences, or our leaders are stupid and they're jerks, or they're confused and they don't know any better. And of course, the critic knows much better than everybody else. People who operate in this world operate with intent. There's no such thing as imperialism without imperialists. There's no such thing as capitalism without capitalists. There's no such thing as rulers who are somnambulists who walk around in their sleep. You watch out for your interests. You watch out and you make calculations. What makes you think that David Rockefeller doesn't? What makes you think that the people at the top don't do it? And what makes you think they don't collude and organize? Or what do you think? You have a group of people who sit around in a room and they plan this? And I always say, oh no, God, they don't sit around in a room. They meet on carousels and they go up and down in merry-go-rounds, or they meet skydiving and they hold hands and they argue. Of course they sit in rooms. Where the hell else are they going to meet?
These are the big players in the world right now on the things that are happening. Big education is fundamentally involved in everything that is happening.
What we've been taught.
I see scientism as a spiritual agenda. I see it as a spiritual deception. It's something that has been put in place and masqueraded as fact and as reality, when in fact most of the things that are paraded today are theories of men.
The deception will pull you any direction, and this is where scientism is. I think this is the whole purpose of scientism. I think there are dark forces behind it trying to pull people into what they think is logic, and it's really speculation, it's really theory. It's not as concrete as everybody thinks it is. And I like I said, I think evolution has been thoroughly disproven. My focus is on cosmology. That's where I've kind of come out, and that's what led me back to the Bible.
Science is great. Scientism, however, is a religion, is a belief system, is an agenda set up to destroy the credibility of the Word of God. It's set up to destroy the credibility of God in people's minds. It's to create doubt. Even right back from Genesis, at the very beginning, Satan was trying to plant doubt into Adam and Eve. Did God really say this? Did God say that? And I think that when we read in the Bible, it's like, did God really mean that? Did he mean that all the stars are going to fall to the earth? Did he mean that the sun moves? No, we've been taught that it's the earth that moves. Well, maybe that's just the way that they thought it was. They looked at it and they were kind of ignorant back then.
Sadly, we're playing too loosely with the Word of God. You know, you've heard it said that the Bible's not a science book, but when it discusses matters of science, it's accurate. Or the Bible's not a history book, but when it discusses matters of history, it's accurate. I think the problem is here we're reducing the Bible to just literature or to a book. It's not a book. It's not a science book. It's not a history book. It's the Word of God. We shouldn't play loosely with it. We should take God at His word.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And it came to pass that the earth was formless and void, and the Creator moved upon the face of the waters. Suddenly, God spoke into the darkness.
Let there be light.
It was not as many modern men suppose. The Creator did not make use of evolution. He created all things by simply speaking them into existence. In 6 24-hour days, God made plants and animals to populate the earth.
In 1922, G.K. Chesterton warned that scientism had become a creed taking over our institutions, a system of thought which began with evolution and has ended in eugenics. But I believe that it began much earlier with the heliocentric universe, our solar system, Big Bang cosmology, giving us the perfect storyline to introduce biological evolution at a later date. As we start our journey looking into scientism deeper, which millions and millions of people in the world recognize as unquestionable scientific fact, we need to start with the evolutionary theory and its fabricated millions and billions of years of primordial history. Stop and consider if the entire scientific and academic world has monolithically embraced or endorsed something as unquestionable scientific fact, when in reality, it's been a massive deception on a grand scale.
And so when it comes to things like the Big Bang, millions of years, billions of years, dinosaurs, evolution, all this stuff, there's so many lies and so many deceptions associated with all of those topics. And so that makes you think, well, if Satan is a liar and he's the father of liars, right? Our adversary goes around deceiving people. That's where the real battle is. It's in our minds. It's not like he shows up at our window with a pitchfork saying, I've got a deal for you to sign in blood. You know, I'm going to blackmail you. No, it's about the mind. It's about what we think. And so if he gets us to think wrong, if he gets us to believe things like evolution and Big Bang and millions and billions of years and just all sorts of things that don't line up with any kind of science at all. None of that stuff has any kind of evidence or scientific stuff. The real evidence is completely against it. And of course, when you look at the Word of God, that's also completely against it. Why? Because the Word of God is true.
They need gaps. They need canopies. They need whatever it takes to somehow align with the fact of millions of years and billions of miles, or billions of years and millions of miles. Evolution needs those millions and billions of everything. And Christians, instead of reading Genesis and saying, hey, Genesis 1 says in 6 days, right? In 6 days, God created. But no, they realize in the back of their mind, well, science is showing us this. I don't want to appear too ignorant, so let's invent a gap theory. Let's invent a canopy theory, because certainly we know there's no waters above the heavens. And this has to stop. We need to tremble at God's word, stop pulling the power out of it by reducing it to literature or poetry and ripping it apart. This is a huge problem.
Many people that have walked away from the Bible or the claims of Christianity, or even 6-day literal creationism, usually have fallen away because of all the finds and the validity they find in science. And again, remember, there's science and there's scientism. What have you fallen for? What have you believed in? Has it been real science or has it been scientism?
We know that they're lying to us about the millions of years. We know they're lying to us about evolution. We know they're lying to us about the Big Bang. All this stuff. You know, if they're lying to us about all that, then what else? What else are they lying to us about? Right? Are they lying to us about the actual Earth that we live on? Are they lying to us about space? Are they lying to us about the sun, the moon, the stars? Where does it end? Well, the lies don't end, because Satan is still very real. He's our adversary. His job is to lie to people. His main function is to lie. And so he's going to lie about everything. He lies to us about our identity. He lies to us about God's identity. He lies to us about the creation. Lies to us about everything.
As the space program came along and people got more and more into cosmology and how does this whole thing work with the planets going around and how many different solar systems are out there and that how many galaxies and different things like that, and this whole idea that stars are out there that are suns, just like our sun, that are supposedly just as big, if not bigger. We're supposed to have this medium star. Notice how everything we have is medium. We're on a medium planet, on a medium star, in a medium-sized galaxy, and they just go to stress that there's nothing extraordinary about the Earth or anything connected to the Earth.
God creating the sun, the moon, and the stars specifically talks about how the sun, the moon, and the stars were created on the 4th day. The earth was already created. What was the earth orbiting around before the sun was even created? See, understand that scientism, no matter how much you want to cling to science, you're going to have a hard time if you're going to look at the literal meaning of Genesis or of creation. So again, if you start looking into how God says that creation happened, how he created the world, understand that he doesn't lie. Scientism has lied to us. They have an agenda.
Through doing experiments and really observing the world, instead of sitting in front of the Cosmos series and anything about the universe and the world that you see on the TV, and actually going outside myself at night and just looking at the world myself, I started to realize, wait a second, I think what the Bible is describing is exactly what I'm seeing, and I don't think what we're being shown is the truth.
Everything that you have starts out with the word of man, right? But are you going to believe the word of man that was inspired by God and is actually available to us? We can read it and we can test it. We can see. We can read it and see what it says and then look at reality and wow, it works.
It's about the truth and getting it across to people in the most successful way possible, and that's it. All I want is to see people wake up and take their power back. At least take their minds back. That's where the power is. That's what they have done to us. They've taken our minds. The flat earth truth does away with all of the mind control. It does away with the bogus theory of evolution. It does away with the dinosaur deception. It does away with the lie that there are aliens out there. And though we still end up with more questions than answers, our minds are freed. And that's how real change is going to happen in this world of ours.
I want to tell you something now. Over $600 billion in military budget for the year 2015. Over $600 billion in military budget in 2015. Before I tell you what they're using that $600 billion for, I'm going to tell you this. 1 billion would have fed every starving individual across the face of this earth. Now, this is what they're doing with it. They're destroying history. They're using that money to destroy history. They're rewriting the school books. They're fabricating history. They're going to teach the next generation who's living what they want them to believe, which is nothing. That's why the Bible is so watered down now. Each generation, it's watered down more and more. Each generation, the truth is watered down more and more. Each generation, history is deleted and fabricated something new more and more. And y'all, it's out of hand now. It's out of control. They're laughing their butts off at all of us, folks. The only ones of you who got cop friends, you're a bunch of Nazi sympathizers, or you're bedfellows. What they're going to do to you when they destroy this country right here, they're going to throw you to animals for sport. Or they'll burn you. Or many will walk right in. Just walk right in and do anything that they want to, folks. They're power tripping. And you know something, I believe a lot of the police and the police departments are on LSD too. I really do. They're giving them mind-altering drugs to turn them into monsters.
Drugs? Then they have the ability to overcome cognitive dissonance. Therefore, they are sincere in their pursuit of truth. Not all flat earthers, though, because some are obvious shills. But also, you don't have to be a flat earther for me to take you seriously. It's just that flat earthers and ball earth skeptics that admit they don't know have more credibility because flat earth is the truth. But I can't be mad at anybody who hasn't taken the time to look at flat earth. It's when you have looked at it and you conclude that it's bullshit is when I have a problem with someone or I stop paying attention to someone. There's no use in me wasting my time on someone that can't even admit the truth to themselves. That's how I see it. Flat Earth has been everything but proven 100%. But what do you expect? There's a 500-year and running conspiracy to hide the truth from us. It's not like it's supposed to be extremely easy to figure out. That's the whole point with truth-seeking. People have covered up the truth, and we are trying to uncover it. It's not supposed to be a piece of cake. So leave your ego behind if you're really about the truth. Because this is bigger than all of us. It's not about me. It's not about Eric Dubay. It's not about Jeranism. It's not about who found it first or whatnot.
We just assumed that we'd get the same treatment as everybody else, which is a foolish assumption.
Yeah.
We've clearly touched a nerve. We're clearly questioning something that some very powerful people are uncomfortable having questioned.
Well, that's absolutely the case.
But hey,
and
listen.
where those people are, we will get into it.
Look, here's the bottom line. I believe that it's a sign of good documentary filmmaking when the status quo is up in arms at the mere fact of having asked some questions. And let's stop being so terrified of the possibility that the Earth might be in a special place in the cosmos. At the end of the day, 400 years ago, Giordano Bruno was burned on the streets of Rome for daring to question the place of Earth in the cosmos.
Jack, what are you talking about?
The Earth is flat.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's
yes,
not.
Yes, it is.
No,
Listen,
it's not.
There's 3 ways to manipulate the mind: what you read, what you see, and what you hear.
Wants to hear what he already believes. He doesn't want to hear the truth. He doesn't want to accept the truth, not what the actual truth is. Now, people like that don't belong in the truth movement. Therefore, the division is okay by me. Flat Earth has given me good reason to pay attention to people. It's simple, really. If they are flat earthers,
So I've chosen to fight for something that I think is bigger than the Gracie family, bigger than MMA. I'm trying to fight for the truth for the next generation, so my nephew and the next generation has something to live there. I think that we all just need to understand that the more we spark the truth, it takes time, to get to somewhere where the things that I know, it takes time.